Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson presents guest host Sam Led, intuitive coach and author.
Harley David, there he is.
There you are.
There. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, you handsome son of a bitch. Look at you.
Look at you. And well, listen, I'm not cool enough. You got the Harley Davidson thing. My uncle has a whole bunch of them.
I ride bikes. That's why. That's all.
You got to be careful.
Yeah. I've been in a few motorcycle accidents. That's okay. It's all right. I'm already got it on record, but don't get too frazzled with that.
Sorry about the earlier. My partner, she's a photographer and coach, and one of her clients came down from LA to Santa Barbara and was doing a whole fashion shoot. So my whole office is filled with clothing right now.
Oh, that's is it clothing that you can wear? Is that okay?
No. It's one of her clients is a lovely guy. He's also a coach. He's a 3 principles coach. It's the understanding I share, and he just came up from actually Malibu Canyon for the day to do a photo shoot. And so, yeah, it's like his bed. It's his changing room. Yeah, because in Santa Barbara, the price of real estate is so expensive that it's like New York prices. So our places are nice but small.
That's why I live here in Delaware. So I'm mess with that crap.
Where are you? Where in Delaware are you?
We live near 20 minutes north of Rehoboth Beach. Okay. So I'm right near the water, far enough away that we don't have to deal with too much, but too close because we have all the traffic. We have a highway that goes right past our development, and it's you can't go anywhere on a Sunday because everybody's leaving, and you just can't leave. You can't go anywhere. So
it's like Santa Barbara, the beach is right here. So everyone from LA, it's like the Hamptons for all the Los Angeles, all the LA folks that come up for the weekend. Sure. So you can't go south on the freeway going back. It's the same thing, kind of.
So you're stuck.
Yeah, it's okay to be stuck here, though.
Yeah, it's okay to be stuck here as well.
I love Delaware. It's the Delaware River Gap. There's some hiking, and gorgeous stuff around there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about hiking. Diabetic, so I don't go out hiking that much. I do exercise, but can't do any hiking. All right. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this interview basically all about you. I'm going to let you do all the talking in case, unless something comes up that I'm going to interject with or add to.
Well, before we begin, if I could just, your work is profound, and I don't know you, but I do. I kind of like, you're the real deal.
We're on the same page. Yeah, we're okay. We get it. We understand what's going on in the world and
it's a blessing and a curse.
Well, yeah, yeah, all at the same time, and there's nothing we can actually do about it. Well, I mean, we can try to get people on board to change the world, but it's a slow road because it's going to take one at a time more or less. But if we can get them in masses, that would be great. All right, so I'm going to just announce my show real quick. Okay. So, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? It's just Led.
Led, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Wait, let me put this. Wait a second. Oh, is it too far away? Let's see. I'll show you a view of you can't see the ocean, but.
Right. No, can't see the ocean. I see a sun. Very bright outside.
Yeah, it's gorgeous today.
Just started raining here, so.
We need to bring it.
All right, here we go. All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson. Me. Got a special guest on my show today. His name is Sam Led. Sam, I guess, could I call you a life coach more or less?
Or call me whatever you want. Just describe
to the audience what you consider yourself to be.
Well, I guess the title would be being nice to myself. It's a transformative coach, transformational coach. Okay. Yeah. And it's very different from straight ahead coaching because from the philosophy that transformative coaches, that the ones that are really doing the good work, we look at our clients as not broken. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to
Yeah,
change.
yeah. They're just making changes in their life. No, you don't have to be broken. You can just make changes in your life and to make yourself and your path a little bit better. That's all.
Exactly. It's more like looking at and pointing back to who you are and what you're capable of.
Right.
Not trying to improve or streamline or create something that you're not. And with traditional therapy, when we're looking at the big picture, a lot of times, we get stigmatized with the fact that although therapy is great for some people, we're looking at what's broken. We spend all the time on what's broken, what we need to fix and change, instead of looking at what's right. And we can strengthen what's right with the person and what's powerful with the person, then we've gotten somewhere. And that's where I point to with my clients. Yeah. And intuitively as well, because I'm also, I am also I guess would be intuitive mindset transformational coach. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, right.
The psychology world has brought it out. They want us to think that we are broken people. So more or less that we can more rely on them to fix us.
Innocently, though. I mean, there's some, they're really, for the most part, not everybody, therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists are well-meaning people that want to do the good work, want to help people, but they're conditioning. And I go back to the fact why the work that I do is powerful, because I love my clients and I love people. Is that we go back to how we're conditioned into our belief systems, and conditioning is dangerous because it's not truth.
No, it's not. That's what I profess to everyone that I talk to. They have everything that we've known in our entire lives. They have taught us. We've been taught this throughout the world. As me being a medium, children are somewhat born with this gift as well. They come in. They're not born with it. You come into the world with it because you're new from where you came from, not because this isn't home. And they know these things. They see these things. But then they get taught the ways of the world. And when they get taught the ways of the world, that pure heart goes away, and then all that stuff goes away. And then, because, my thing is I tell people, if you take 2 children of the age of 2 years old of every race, creed, and color and put them in one big giant room, and then take 2 of them, turn them around and say, okay, I want you to point to me. Who do you hate? They're going to look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about, because they haven't learned how to hate anybody yet, and hate, anger, sorrow, grief, guilt, pain, anguish, all that stuff. We learned how to have all that stuff. It didn't come into this world with you, and it doesn't have to leave with you as well. But so why do we carry it around here? So what do you do to rectify that?
By not rectifying it, I guess, and pointing back again to what you just mentioned, which is beautiful. Yeah. And so. And it's interesting you mentioned about kids, because if you've ever, and I have a niece and nephew up in New York, and very close to them, and they're smarter than I am. That kids are if you watch them like my niece, when she was younger, she's 8 now. When she was a toddler, she would have a temper tantrum, right?
Sure.
And it was like fire and brimstone. It was like the world's coming to an end.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we've all seen it in our whether you have kids or you have friends that have kids, and then 2 minutes later it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that? How you can explain it is that their cortex, it's our brain is like a supercomputer. It's like your laptop computer. It's like your cell phone, your Android device. And it's only going to work as what we put into it. It's like we're putting in these thought programs. It's like a floppy disk we're inserting into our hard drive that is taking that data and then packaging it up and then using it, storing it like a computer. Right. And the computer is only as good if you think of, and I love metaphors, especially computer metaphors with our super brain, our supercomputer. The computer is only as good if you plug it in, right? The same thing with our brains.
Yes.
So kids are
you're not
they've go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, if you're not using it, you're not using it. But kids tend to use it a lot quicker. They pick up so many things, and I tell that to people. Your kids are picking up everything that you're doing, not just the little tiny bits that you think you can't hide things from kids because they pick up on it. They watch it, and then they store it inside them, and then what happens? It comes out later.
But let me take that one step deeper, because the difference, in addition to what you mentioned, is that as we get older, our brain very innocently, because it's being filled up with all this data, conditioning, the school we went to, and how we were raised, and this is the town we were raised in, etc., and then our Judeo-Christian spiritual beliefs that have been pumped into us. We've been clouded. So what ends up happening is our brain starts to interfere. Thought starts to contaminate or gets involved too much, like a helicopter parent, right? The brain becomes that helicopter parent innocently because it doesn't know better. The brain loves you. The brain's just trying to keep us safe. But kids are not contaminated by that degree of stimulus, of input, the floppy disk thought programs of conditioned belief in systems and how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to behave and this, that, and the other. And when the work that I do points back to what we knew when we're born, is that we are a spiritual being in a physical machine.
Yep.
Moderated, scripted, and narrated, the same thing, by a machine that's trying to keep you safe, but it's making it up. It's illusory, and we think it's real when we're caught up, when we're scared, and we take the bait that the brain's giving us, and when we see that it's all made up, we don't have to believe it all. We don't have to believe all the, and the brain likes to complicate everything, but it's really that simple. We're just one thought away from mental health. We are just literally one thought away from mental well-being, because all of us have innate well-being within us. That's our default state. That's our true north. That's who we are. And then, Daniel, as an intuitive, as a brilliant intuitive and medium and counselor and person who loves people, who sees people, who really sees people, can also probably testify to the fact that who we are is love, our true nature underneath things. If you go underneath the noise of our thinking, you see infinite potential, you see resilience, you see love, you see calm. That's who all of us are. I don't care if you're in prison.
That's where we came from.
That's where we came from. The divine light of who we are is infinite. And
where we came from, there is no hate, there's no anger, sorrow, grief, guilt. And people just can't imagine their lives without that, but they need to imagine their lives without that. I tell them all the time, somebody talks about their depression or their anxiety. Well, it's just like if you were an alcoholic and I was me, I would say, hey, Sam, I can take you to classes and I can take you to AA and do all that stuff. But it doesn't mean anything unless you choose to let it go, unless you choose to decide to stop drinking. Then at that point, then we can move forward together. Forget all the other stuff, because it's not what we don't need to focus on everything else that happened during being an alcoholic. We need to just move forward and let it all go. But people have to make these choices in order to let it go. And a lot of them say, well, I can't do that. And I say, no, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that you won't do it because they want to hold on to it for some reason. But, like negative people in your life, you've had negative people in your life. If you have them in your life, let them go. There's nothing in a book that says you have to talk to anybody if you don't want to. So let them go. But
that's really well said.
Yeah.
I love what you said there, because it's so true. Can I share something? Just a quick story about. It's interesting that Daniel, you must be psychic. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
I worked as a transformational coach in the recovery community for many years, seeing private clients and down in Malibu. And it's interesting. addiction is the same thing as any other thought program that we've pre-installed into our hard drive. There might be some neurochemical predisposition. There may be some genetic neurochemical predisposition.
Sure.
Maybe a marker, a trigger, but that doesn't mean anything. And for a lot of people, that's hard to hear when they see that there's nothing. And hear me out. There's 100% nothing wrong with someone who has the label of addiction. There's nothing wrong with them.
No.
100% nothing. They're not broken. They don't have to, and that's the danger. And I'm getting on my bully pulpit of the 12 steps, because they basically for innocently are saying, you're broken, admit to you're broken, admit to the mistakes you made and what you did wrong, and that you have to surrender yourself to higher power. No, you are the higher power. We are the higher power. There is God within all of us. There's nirvana within all of us. And when I was working, one of my favorite clients, young man, this is about 6 years ago, in his late 20s. He dropped out of law school because he got a couple of DUIs and he couldn't, stop drinking, and that's why he was there. And he felt really hopeless. He's like, I said, so what's your plan, or what are you going to do next once this program is over? He's like, I don't know. I don't have any confidence in myself to go back to law school because I'm going to mess up again. I said, what do you mean you're going to mess up again? He's like, because you know where I'm going with this, right? I said,
yeah, that was it.
I said, tell me when I said to him, and a brilliant guy, Daniel, brilliant guy. Like, you could see he loves the law. You could see that he's just got this passion for this work. Whenever
he didn't have any faith in himself.
Well, more than that, he took on the conditioning of that he's an addict. One. Yeah. And I'm not going to get into, again, rebuilt for the most part, people that want to help others with these issues mean well, but we're doing people a disjustice. Injustice. I don't think that's a word. An injustice by stigmatizing them and labeling them as an addict, putting them in these facilities, and then saying, you're broken. You're going to have to deal with this. You're an addict. You're going to have to be careful where you walk. You can't walk past a bar, or you need to do all this stuff because it's never going to go away.
Yes, you can.
It's total hogwash, malarkey, nonsense. And when I said to him, I said, so tell me when you not had this last week. Tell me all the times when you not had hopeless thinking. Tell me when you just felt good for no reason. He smiled at me. He's like, oh yeah. I said, are you an addict all the time? I mean, I'm Sam, and you're so-and-so most of the time. And I think you probably have 2 or 3 meals a day. And you probably, do certain things during your day that you do certain things during your day. But are you an addict all the time? Are you depressed all the time? I said, no. He said, no. I said, point me to the hours in the day that you're just feeling good and you don't even know why. He said, okay. So we went through that. I said, well, my job is to point you back there more often. Forget all the conditioning about how much of an, how much broken you are and what you need to do and medication you need to take. Let's just focus on the present moment right now. Right now, we're 2 blokes talking, having a great conversation, just having fun. You're so-and-so and I'm Sam. We're just 2 human beings. How does that feel right now? He's like, fine, calm. I just feel like myself. I said, exactly, because that's who you are.
Right.
You're not so-and-so the addict that has to deal with this. You can choose to see all that addictive thought programs when you get caught up, when we get anxious, when we get overwhelmed. And then when you get overwhelmed and anxious, you can see that's a thought program that's been pre-installed into your hard drive of your computer that is completely made up, feels real, because what do? We feel our thinking, right? Anxiety feels real. I mean, I've suffered myself from terrible anxiety and ADHD and the whole thing, but that doesn't mean that that's who I am.
No,
I just have a whole bunch of thinking on board, a whole bunch of anxiety thinking and thought programs running through me in the moment. It's like, and so I said this to him, and I said, just because, all of us having anxious thinking, all of us have fear and loathing thinking. Pick your doom and gloom, end of the world, fire and brimstone thought processes that we all experience. We all do it, but it doesn't mean that we have to believe it. Because when you understand how the mind really works, that we are not experiencing the world of the outside in our circumstances. We are experiencing this world called thought, that it's like a virtual reality simulation, that once we take off these Oculus glasses and get present, we see the racket the brain is taking, the road the brain is taking us down on of nonsense, because our brain is the greatest. Every brain out there should get a honorary Academy Award for greatest melodrama, because 100%, even if it feels real, even if you're broke, even if you're sick, even if you're alone, 100% of your reality is being narrated by this computer called your brain that is trying to keep you safe, but it glitches like all computers. And when we see that, we have better awareness that we don't have to fix ourselves, because we drop into that moment of presence all day long. We just don't pay attention to it enough. We're just not paying, because the noise up here is so loud. It's just like Las Vegas up here, and it's down here. It's just quiet, and we think the quiet is not important, but the quiet is everything.
Right. Yeah, I can totally go into exactly what that guy was feeling. I used to be in a motorcycle club at one point. They were all ex-drug addicts and alcoholics. Although, while I was with them, they were always going to AA, always talking about, oh, we're all addicts, no matter, we're all addicts. And then in the end, I ended up quitting the club for one big reason was because one of them told me, "You're not like us."
I was about to mention that. That's so funny. You just said
they said, "You're not like us," and I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Oh, I know." I said, "I didn't. Alcohol and drugs didn't take over my life. I quit drinking because I'm a diabetic, and I wasn't a real big drinker, but I said." I just can't do it anymore. And I said, yeah, that's why you're not like us, because it didn't ruin your life. I said, well, I didn't let it ruin my life. I said, you don't have to let it ruin your life either. I said, they kept saying, oh, this is a disease. I said, no, this is a choice. I said, I have diabetes. That's a disease. You choose to put alcohol or drugs into your system. You don't wake up as a baby and go, oh, I'm going to drink today. No, you're surrounded by that, and that's what you do. But and they were, no matter what, they wanted you to go to AA. So I had to go to AA with them. And they were always saying, oh, did you ever drink in your life? Oh, yes. Well, oh, then you're an addict. I said, no, I'm not an addict. But
that was interesting. I had the same. So, and there's where traditional recovery programs.
That's where the power and the control sets in.
Exactly. And what is control and power? It's up here.
Yes.
And when especially my clients who are in recovery finally get it, like they're wrapped around in this egoic, dance of judgment. And for your example, well, you're not an addict. How do you know what we're going through? Well,
right.
What does that mean? That's all judgment and critique. And the reason why they're doing it is it's all innocent. It's all psychologically innocent.
Right.
Once they really kind of see how the mind. When you share with them that they're not broken, and then there's some pushback, it's because they're trying to figure out the brain can't understand what I'm pointing to with this, because the brain is a conceptually driven, intellectual machine that is this analytical thing. It doesn't understand the world outside of the form.
Right.
And when we when we see that whole process, how the brain is working, is completely all made up, and that even that phrase, oh, you're not an addict, that's all made up. Addiction's all made up. All of it's all made up. What is true is the present moment. What is true is everything else is made up. And once people see how mind works and how the system works, the system's not broken. We just are using the equipment the wrong way.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And we have the problem with us is we have relinquished the power over to everyone else because we have been brought up or thought to be brought up as they have control of everything and we rely on them for everything, and we need to stop doing that. And we can do it on our own if we choose to, but most people just choose not to. They think, oh, well, they'll take care of everything for me. No, not really.
I think what happened, what changes people. I've had clients walk out of my sessions and be like, this guy, what does he know? He doesn't know about my problem. He's like, I see everybody is perfect. I know, like, what is this guy? Some kind of holy roller. Like, what is this guy on? I'm like, part of that, what is their conditioning,
right?
And who blames them, right? But when you start to let go of conditioning, I'm talking about the belief systems, like what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, everything
that causes. My East Coast just came out right there. I don't know if you heard it. But you're like more Philadelphia, so you say on. Okay.
Yeah, from Jersey actually, but
South Jersey, right?
Philadelphia. Yeah, my mom and dad were from Philly. Yeah.
Yes. So you say on. Okay.
Yeah, on or water.
Yeah. How you doing? Right.
Yeah. We go down and play by the creek. Yeah,
by the creek. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love that area because I have family from there too. Anyways, so once a client sees like that they've taken the bait innocently and they see the racket, they see the game, they understand like that's all made up, and I've just been fed a whole bunch of conditioning that at any moment I can let go of because I see my true nature all day long. And Sam over there is pointing to my true nature and just reminding me who I am. Let me close this real quick. I can hear outside of who I am, which is good, which is a bright shining light, which is love, which is kind, which is successful, which is resilient and hopeful. And I can go on and on and on. That's what all the great sages pointed to. Jesus, Buddha, Maharishi, name your favorite all-star deity or.
I think the biggest problem we have, and I have with people, is fighting the pushback, because this is all they've ever known. This is all they've ever understood, and getting them away from that is a challenge. But it's not a challenge that can't be overcome.
It's interesting. Because we know that the brain likes to overcomplicate everything, and it is this simple, Daniel. You know it. You got it decades ago.
I tell her, if you want to choose not to do something, all you have to do is not do it anymore. It's that simple.
Right. And then, so what's interesting is that it's like, so the conversation and every conversation with pushback, right? And you've worked with a lot of pushback. Our being a spiritual being, an intuitive and clairvoyant, a medium that has this gift that we all have, but you're like the Porsche, you've fine-tuned it, or like the Steinway piano, you've harnessed it because you see it. Whereas
see it from the other side.
And the signal that you pick up, that divine signal, we all see. But just like, a radio station that's far away, there's multipath distortion. That multipath distortion is the pushback, is the judgment, is the ego, is the noise up in the brain. When we think from our thinking, when we use our brain to figure out our problems, to problem solve, to find clarity, when we experience a major loss in our life, we all fall flat on our butt. Why? Because all the great things that happen, all the great decisions we make, all the reason why we fall in love, we meet the love of our life, or we find that great job, or you name your success story, or whatever it is when we drop into the present moment, when we drop into that space before thought, the space within. And so what happens with the pushback is when you just share with them your own story, share from our experience, from my experience, how I was able to see this. And I still have my my frailties. I'm still a human, right?
Sure.
I'm still perfectly imperfect. Once they're able to see that, how the mind works, how the system works, the system's perfectly designed to work this way. And then when we're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, depressed, that's not signaling us to believe that thinking in the moment, even if it feels real, because the brain is finding a fault. The brain always needs to find a fall guy because it's a computer. It has to find some kind of solution to the equation, right?
Right.
Because of that, it's going to point to your lack of money in your bank account, or that you're alone, or that you're, you don't have kids, or that you have, diabetes, or whatever it is, right? But once you see that the brain doesn't know any better, because it thinks by doing that, it's keeping us safe, because it can't tell the difference between a ham sandwich and a saber-tooth tiger and no money in the bank account. It can't. Right. It's a pattern recognizer. It's a computer. Our soul, our conscious soul, that's where it comes from. And when people see that, like even hard to treat folks that are really resistant, once they see it, it's like, oh man. It's like,
yeah. Once they experience a little bit of learning to let it go, then they want more of it. And hopefully they're able to to release themselves to be able to get more of it. But and the one thing I never try to do is I don't give up on anyone. There's always some hope there for every single person. They just have to believe in it themselves as well.
How long you've been a medium? For many years.
No, I have not.
Oh no. Well,
no.
You have been, but you haven't been you didn't hang up your shingle and actually doing it as a.
I've seen spirit my entire life. I just didn't know why. But everything came to fruition for me right before my 50th birthday. I'm 54 now. So everything.
Oh, you're young.
Yeah. Okay. If you say so. And, but yeah, everything that I know and everything I've been telling everybody, I've only known it for 4 years. I get everything that I know, I get from spirit. I get from my guides. I've never read a Bible, and I know all. For me, it's really strange. I go to bed, I wake up in the morning, and I just know more stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, and then my thing is just trying to help people with that same knowledge. But the one thing I always hear from people after I get done talking with them, they say, man, that's a lot I got to think about. That's so much to think about. And I said, yeah, because no one's ever told you these things before, because you're conditioned by the world. And so we need to recondition, or uncondition, and then we need to teach ourselves differently.
And you could take that one step further, because it's yeah. And you're not going to get it from any of that thinking. You're going to get it tomorrow morning when it's really quiet, and all of a sudden some wisdoms. So like
when you haven't let the world come in.
That's exactly right. And so, that's why when I come up against resistance with these teachings, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you in our pre-interview email exchange, that the work that I share is based on the understanding of the three principles that was initially discovered by this gentleman named Sidney Banks, who's this very ordinary blue-collar welder from British Columbia, who was really fighting against himself for decades. Kind, generous man, but he was really tortured. There was always drama going on, and he was very insecure, but he was a good man. And one day he was having a conversation with one of his coworkers, and he said something like, do you think that I should continue doing this work? I'm really feeling, insecure. I'm not feeling good about what I'm doing right now, because he was head of the welders union outside of Vancouver. This is in the early 70s. And the guy, his friend sitting next to him, they're both like, this is their lunch break. And his friend looked at him, he started laughing, and Sid said, what's so funny? He's like, Sid, you really, you think you're insecure, you think you're insecure, but you're really not. That's just momentary insecurity. And all of a sudden the light bulb went on, and Sid was changed forever. And he saw that, we're not the sum total of our thinking, that
Right.
it's all made up. Who we are is divine. That
Yeah.
underneath the noise of our brain, of our thinking, there's this bright light, this our true nature is just well-being.
Yeah.
Period. Hard stop.
Yeah. Like some of the things I tell people all the time, I say, you're wonderful. You're good enough. We're all good enough to do absolutely anything we want to do in this world, but we just have to have faith in that. We have to stop with the thinking of everyone else has control of us, and let all that go. We are so powerful. We are such powerful beings, but we've been taught the ways of the world that we're not good enough for anything. We cannot do anything we want to do, and we're going to let the world dictate what we're going to do. And we have to get away from that. We're not that. And the sooner that we stand up and decide we're not going to take it anymore, the better this place is going to be, the better this world is going to be. I always say, we all live on the same planet. No one's going anywhere anytime soon. We better start to get along with each other before we annihilate each other, because it seems like that's where we're heading. But the only way the only place it's going to start is with us. And within ourselves.
Well said. And in addition to that, if we look at our life moment to moment, instead of future fantasy thinking about what am I going to do next? I can't pay the bills. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to have, all thinking. The thing about thinking and thought that I share with my clients and in the videos that I do in my podcast, The Fearless Now, is that thought and thinking is moving through us, and we have absolutely no control of it. That we can do all kinds of thought stopping techniques, tapping, NLP, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that might be temporary. They might have a temporary response where our thinking quiets down a little bit, but it always comes back to thought. And the more we see that, the more we don't have to use a technique to calm our thinking down. And,
right.
And the way we do that is by sitting still with it, knowing that, think about it as this: we are the sky. And thought and thinking, especially if it's insecure thought, or we just get caught up in a low mood and our brain is trying to find a fall guy for the reason why we're feeling crappy. That's like cumulonimbus thunderstorm clouds moving through us, but it always moves through if you just pause and see what's going on. It's like the check. I call it the check engine light. It's like if your car is overheating, you're not going to continue driving unless you want to do damage. What do? You pull over to the side of the road. You don't have to stop your life, especially if you're at work and you have to make a living. But when you see all that anxiety coming through, or that fear, when maybe your job is on the line, or you perceive your job's on the line, you're having all this doom and gloom for future fantasy thinking, you can just sit still with it and be like, okay, brain, where are you going with this? You're going sideways right now. You're going loony. And
how many people do we know that continuously drive around with their check engine light on all the time?
I know two people, but one of them's dead. Or
they put a piece of tape over that light so
right. No. If you're a member of the
ourselves,
remember the show? Remember Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers on NPR?
Oh yeah,
the car talk.
Yeah.
If you're a member of the duct tape council, you just find duct tape and put it. But eventually, the duct tape's going to come off.
Yeah.
And the duct tape is a metaphor for techniques or strategies to calm down the mind.
Sure.
Meditation is great, but still, if that works for you, then great. But
you can't meditate all day.
You can't meditate all day, but you can understand how the system works. That even if you're wealthy, you have a beautiful wife, and you have great kids, and you live in a nice house in Bergen County or wherever, I don't know, or LA or in Malibu, you still can have go into a low mood. You still can have crazy thinking.
You still
feel. And when we start feeling our thinking, because it feels so real, our ego, which is also made up, chimes in and says, you need to do something about that. How dare they talk to you that way? And that is the brain, again, erroneously thinking that thought can keep us safe. Now, obviously, if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, you get that noradrenaline rush. You get that, the primitive system in the brain takes over. That's where that's for. But most of the time, we're not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger.
No.
Most of the time we're talking to nice people like Daniel, or most of the time we're just interacting at work or our kids. But sometimes, due to no fault of our own, it's because it's all psychologically innocent, we take the bait and get caught up and get sucked into the nonsense. I do, you do, we all do. And it's just part of being human. But the next time that happens, we see it. Like someone cuts us off on the freeway, right? That happened to me a couple of days ago. I didn't get any sleep because I had another podcast I was on, and I'm still very anxious doing these podcasts. I'm still anxious now doing it. I didn't get any sleep. I had to go to I think it was to the supermarket. I was on the freeway, and it was a Monday late, like almost towards rush hour, and some guy in I think it was a BMW cut me off. It's always the BMWs, right? I'm just kidding. it's always right. It's always a guy. Now, I don't know what it was. I don't remember what. But he cut me off, and all of a sudden, I could see that it was like a devil on my shoulder. It was the ego started yelling. It's like, how dare this guy? He put your life in danger. Who does he think I started getting really anxious. I was really, really on edge. And then I saw it like, oh, I don't need to take on that thinking. I don't need to believe it just because it's a thought. I mean, that's crazy. Like, why would I chase after this guy in my car because he cut me off? Because the other guy, maybe he was rushing his daughter to the hospital, or maybe he was just in a rush and psychologically, he was innocently just not paying attention. He is human, but our brain plays funky tricks on us.
Sure. Well, we were taught to do. Yeah.
And then we're taught, and then we're watching on the, the guy was some jerk off, he was a jerk,
I had a same instance like that though, about 2 months ago, where a guy, I pulled out into traffic, and he was coming around the bend, and then I pulled out, and then he just kind of stopped. So I said, oh, he's letting me in. So he let me in. And then he followed me. He followed me all the way around the whole parking lot. I let my wife out, and then I went around the parking lot, and then he followed me. And then my wife called back, and she says, that guy still following you? I said, yeah. She said, come back here and pick me up. So I went and picked him up. He followed me all the way back around. I stopped, and she got in the car. And then he did the thing where he pulled up next to me and rolled his window down. And I said, can I help you? And he said, yeah, you're back there. You're impeding traffic and all this stuff. And I got it on video. And I said, okay, well, that's good, because I got my video on camera going on my car as well. And he started calling me all kinds of names and all that. And I said, are you done? and I smiled. I said, are you done? And left. And he said, you're a piece of this and you're a piece of that. And I said, okay, I guess you're not done yet. So I let him go on. And then I said again. He said, well, I got you on video camera. I said, good. I got you on video camera. Called me all kinds of names. I'm going to report you to the police. I said, that's fine. Go right ahead. I'm okay with it. And then he stopped a minute. And I said, are you done? And he said, and then he shut his window and took off. And my wife said,
I think he's done.
Yeah, my wife said, I'm so proud of you. I said, why? She said, because you just 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, you wouldn't have done that. I said, but now I said, yeah, because.
This is what you saw, Daniel. Can I be your mind's eye?
Why am I going to make his anger turn into my anger? It's because I wasn't angry. So
well, you saw more than that.
Yeah,
you saw more than that. You saw his you at the moment, you were caught up just like I would be sometimes. We all are.
He was
But
trying to
at some point, but hours later, I think you might have had compassion for him because he was he was caught up in a whole like bevy of thinking. He was just swimming in some thinking, and it was nothing to do with you. It never is.
No.
And once we let our thinking settle, because our thinking always settles. Our operating system up here, our computer, our brain has this built-in Control-Alt-Delete on your computer that automatically resets itself, refreshes the thinking, so new thinking can come through. But we don't wait. We're not patient enough sometimes, and we all take the trap. We all do that sometimes. But once we see it, the system's designed, like that guy, I bet you 3 hours later, he completely forgot what happened. And he's probably calm and he's smiling, he's joking, like the little kid, like my niece.
Turned into his regular self again.
Because that wasn't him. That's a whole bunch of thinking and that's all a bunch of heavy thinking going on in his head. Just like, and no one likes to be yelled at. No one likes to be threatened. No one likes to be, it's not fun. But once you see the psychological innocence in it, now I'm not saying there's consequences for actions. Like, some of my colleagues that are coaches go into the prison system. I worked
there for 6 years in medical. Yeah, I get it.
So can you imagine? So Daniel, you love this story. So, there's this brilliant coach that goes, initially, and all these coaches, these transformational coaches, they went through their own kind of epiphany, like where they really saw like what's important. Like they have a moment like where they drop into the present moment, and then they really see their wife for the first time, or they really see their kids for the first time, and they start to cry because they see what you see, right? So these two coaches go into the prison system with Sid Banks, who, those of you can Google him. He wrote a book called The Missing Link, and this is not some cult. In fact, Sid Banks didn't want to be video tape recorded until like the last 7 years of his life. Wow. He gave everything away for free. So this isn't some money making thing. He's the real deal. Okay. They go into this prison. I think it was San Quentin. It was a serious prison, like
real prison. Yeah.
Max. I don't know how the maximum security. And they go into this room with like 300 or 400 prisoners. And these are like lifers. These are like, people that have done some pretty terrible stuff. He gets up on top of a chair and he screams, "You're all innocent, but you just don't know it." Now, he's not pointing to the fact what they did at the time was terrible. They murdered somebody, or they, but at that moment when they did that, they were caught up in a level of thinking at the time that they thought at that moment was truth, which we know it's not truth, which that when we're caught up in our thinking, when it's heavy, when it's distorted by the cognitive lens of when our brain goes sideways, when we react to things, when we're angry, when we're short with people, or when we are doing things that maybe are not safe for society, like robbing a bank or something like that we think is right at the time, all that thinking settles, but there are consequences for actions. If you rob a bank or you hurt somebody, you should go to prison. I mean, obviously, but that doesn't mean now while they're in prison that they still have to suffer in their
right. They don't have to continuously run that through them and turn them in and keep themselves into that person. Like that song back in the 90s, free your mind and the rest will follow.
I love that song.
They can let go of all that stuff if they choose to, and choose not to be that person that they were in prison for. That's all.
And interesting enough, once they saw their true nature, their true north, that underneath all that thinking about being a prisoner and being incarcerated and being in prison for life, once they really saw what's true versus what's being made up by the brain, once they take off these VR glasses of the Matrix and get present, they feel free. And in fact, after that prison program was completed, prisoners felt freer than the guards working in the prison. these prisoners felt freer than people on the outside because they got it. And
yeah, and I can tell you just from experience from working in the prison, that's work that they would really need to do on themselves as well. And some of them do, a lot of them don't, because the prison system is very conditioning as well. They are constantly reminded of who they are and what they did by everyone who works there, all the way down from the corrections officers to the nursing staff itself, because they're around nurses all day long. I didn't realize how much they were until I worked in medical there for 6 years, and they're constantly being reminded of who they are and what they did, and they're also being told of what their worth is, and their worth is very, as is pointed out to them, is very low. They don't have it's hard for them to get a chance to come to learn to separate themselves from that while in the prison. They need to do that. A lot of it is on the outside, but they know, unfortunately.
And you made a really good point, because these coaches that went in there to work with these prisoners would go in and out of that story that you just shared.
Yeah,
they go in and out of that. So, but once they understand the design, you don't have to take on that thinking, that story that the prison guards are telling you or the system is telling you.
Right. Because I got to tell people all the time, when somebody's spouting out negativity to you, they're the singer and you're the audience. As long as you continue to be the audience, they're going to sing to you, and that's what they're going to do.
Right.
So until you decide that you're not going to listen to it anymore, and you walk away, and don't let it cloud your mind, because that's what they do.
It's kind of like, the example I used with driving on the freeway. It's the same thing in any situation that we work from a level of thinking at the moment in real time that we think is real in the moment. But once we understand how the mind works, we see that when we're caught up in anxious thinking, fearful thinking, hopeless thinking, that and it feels real and it feels yucky, whether you're a prisoner doing a life sentence or you're a millionaire or billionaire and living in Manhattan. It's exactly the same thing, that you can still, despite what the outside world is telling you, despite what the CEOs are telling you in prison or your fellow prisoners are telling you in prison, once you see that story that it really is made up, that you still, in the present moment, when you drop into the present moment, in every moment of every day, can still have a good feeling. What I mean by that is just have a good feeling. And we point to that all day long. And when we see it as a quiet signal, as it's calm, and when we see it, it's not some like holy moment where like there's fireworks and, there's a bright beam of light. When we see that nirvana is calm, that you don't need to travel to, to Kathmandu or to, to India or to Mecca.
Clarity is within us. We just have to choose to accept it.
That's right.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Because I was looking on your website, I was checking you out, stalking you a little bit. So you talk about your story, and could you tell everyone here what led you to become what you are now? Your story, because you talk about in your story, it's very raw, it's very messy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not gonna give it. I'm just giving you a little teaser.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
little brief. I know you don't need to go into all the details. But.
Yeah, because you all read it. My book's coming out in a couple months. I just actually found a publisher, which had a lot of thinking around, because I was really like, oh my God, this is gonna be, another 2 years before I can get it out. It's gonna cost me a fortune, but that's just a whole bunch of thinking again. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to, it's interesting because when people like get all caught up, when I tell my clients, if you're really, 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 really caught up, even if you're at work, you know what? That's not a place to start anything. That's not a place to start anything new. Because it's going to be a complete waste of time. When your thinking settles, go do your thing. So I did that. So now I'm a little bit better. So I have a little bit more confidence in myself.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, especially when you get into a relationship or something, only you can make yourself happy, but you have to become something for yourself before you can become anything for anyone else. So you gotta find some solace within you before. Don't compound problems on top of problems. Try to heal yourself first before you go out there. But yeah, only you are going to make things happen, and God helps those that help themselves, but God already helped us. He put us here. He wants us to figure out the rest of it, in a good way.
And God knows that all of us are perfect underneath your thinking.
We are.
It's thought gets in the way sometimes. Thought is a gift, and again, I'm going to circle back to my story, but when we see that thought is a divine gift, that is the bridge between the world of the form and the formless. And you see that bridge all the time with your client work every day, and I do too, for better or for worse. No, it's all for better. But once you see that thought is like Google Translate, sometimes the sometimes part is when we're, wrapped up around the axle of our crazy thinking, and we're feeling insecure, whatever it is. When we see, Google Translate, if you ever spoken to someone, you want to impress them, with your German, and you type into Google Translate, whatever, I don't know, I love this ice cream or something. It comes out and you send it to them or whatever. And they respond back, what did you just say?
Yeah,
I didn't understand. That's not real German.
I don't think
it's gibberish.
Yeah.
The brain acts like Google Translate sometimes because it glitches innocently. So getting back to my story, and Google Translate. 17 years ago, something happened to me that was very traumatic, that led me down this rabbit hole dealing with the criminal justice system that was, again, before I was introduced to this understanding some years ago, really, I thought it was going to be the end of me. I thought I had no future, no reason to live. And, in fact, I was definitely had suicidal ideation. And growing up, because that wasn't the sum total of my existence once I saw that. But,
right,
before that happened in 2005, I was going down a career trajectory. I went to grad school. I have a master's in conflict resolution, public policy. I was doing some good work. Wasn't my calling, but I was actually using some of my facilitative skills as a coach to work with organizations in non-for-profits, in the health sector, in the environmental public policy sector in DC, working for a couple of think tanks. And it was a project, blah, 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 blah. I was also doing marketing and stuff after that, and as a mental health advocate. But I really was kind of just roaming around, really unsure of what the heck I wanted to do. I always knew that I love people and that I love, being that shepherd. And then I became an acupuncturist using low-level laser as the medium in 2007, after this whole mess happened when I came out to California in early 2006. And that changed everything for me, because before that, I was the analytical, thinking from the brain, conceptual guy. It had to be rational. It had to make sense. But all of a sudden, now let me go back a second. So growing up as a little kid to today, I've always been able to kind of see and hear things like you, Daniel.
Oh,
For better or for worse. I've always been able to kind of, it wasn't like I see dead people. That movie, what was that movie? The Sixth Sense or something?
Yeah, I'm like him. I'm just like him, except grown up now. That's all.
Yes, with glass. Yes, I mean you got a you got the cool goatee though.
Yeah. Well,
I could never pull that off.
It's got a little. It still was dark here. I wish it looked like I ate some chocolate earlier, but no.
Part of it, Daniel, you're hard on yourself. It looks good. So but I always dismissed it. Like I really thought that I was making it all up. But that made no sense either, because when you're thinking you're making stuff up or that you're second guessing yourself, there's a feeling attached to it. This feeling was calm. This feeling was, there was nothing attached to it besides just an open void space. Right. Well, and it felt good. And it felt good in not in like a dopamine rush that you get from, eating chocolate or sex or whatever. It was more like,
these days I'll take chocolate.
What? What'd you say?
I'm old, so these days I'll take chocolate instead.
Yes, of course, chocolate any day of the week. So I saw that, and I didn't really think of anything. And growing up in a world that was based on, okay, what are you going to produce for me? What are you going to do for me? It was all about consumerism, consumption, money, making money, and nothing spiritual. And it was confusing to me as a little kid into teenage years, because, growing up in a Judeo-Christian background, how does that make sense if it's all about producing and performing and in competition and making, but then on Saturday or Sunday, I'm Jewish, but so we go to temple on Saturday, or if you're Christian, you go to church on Sunday and you celebrate how then is there a day of rest then after you're beating yourself up the whole week to pay your bills or to get into college or whatever? There's a disconnect there. It made no sense to me. And I was constantly like in torment over that. Like, how was that I was born with something that we all have, but I was able to just tap into it. I was able to see it probably better than like you were able to see it, to harness it. I didn't ask for it. It was just what happened. And yeah. How is that possible? And then after this horrible thing happened, that I'm partly responsible for it happening. I mean, what's on the other side of that? I don't want to die, but it felt like I had no future and it was hopeless. I then really kind of discovered like Reiki and acupuncture, and I became certified as a laser therapist. I was doing alternative healing, and I opened up a brick and mortar practice here in Santa Barbara. And it basically, people would come in and I would just sit with them. Sometimes we'd not say anything for like 20 minutes, just nod to each other and just be really quiet.
Just being
us. And sharing a moment of just peace and who we, dropping into the moment. And all of a sudden the wisdom would come through. I would just pick up on something and it would start a conversation. And by the end of the conversation, they'd want to come back for another session. I wasn't trying to fix them. Now I would use, if they were coming in for a mind-body issue and they wanted me to move some energy through and they were feeling stuck and they were having some symptoms, I would use my light therapy device to work on acupressure points or do some Reiki. But for the most part, it was a conversation that began this whole journey with them. It wasn't like a therapist. So how you feeling?
They figured out that you weren't going to bring in any of the outside influences. They figured out that you got it. You get it. You understand it. And you weren't going to bring in what we consider normal, talking about your problems and all that stuff. And they saw that you weren't going to do that.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's how it would start out. And they innocently, like we all do, especially when we're struggling with something that's pretty tough and catastrophic, we all tend to we share the problem, then we go into story. Yes. Story being, it's the story is the hyperbole, it's the soap opera after the fact. And when a client would walk into my office, or even when I do with my coaching clients, I really see them for who they are, not for their temporary issues. that are not even a problem.
Or what they think they are.
What they think they are. What they, if we didn't have feeling attached to thinking, then we wouldn't see any of it as a problem. We would see it as just like a ticker tape of noise, in our mind's eye. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So I started doing this work, and the coaching became even bigger. And I eventually got a gig working as a private consultant doing one-on-one coaching in a residential setting, in both IOP and with recovery clients. And then it kind of got, it mushroomed from there. And during that time between 2005 and today, a couple of years ago, I would, start my book and then stop my book. Start my book and stop my book, then forget about it for like another 3 years, right? And then something would happen, like I got divorced, which was at the time very traumatic, and like divorce is for a lot of us. But this took on a different spin because my ex was from Europe, and because of the situation that I put myself in, and it was an unjust situation for the way how it happened through the system, quote unquote. I was unable to petition her for to sponsor her as a, what do you call it, to get her citizenship, because we were married. But anyways,
sure.
It's a whole mess. It's not even so. I really had to let go of all the judgment and all of the conditioning about my situation, that just like a prisoner in moments can let go of their conditioning and really get present, because that's all I had at that time.
You stood up for yourself.
By not standing up for myself. By letting go of the controls, literally. And I know that for a lot of people listening to this, that doesn't make any, that sounds like, woo spiritual stuff, but it's not.
No,
No. Because when you let go of the controls, I look at it like if a pilot is experiencing a nosedive in their aircraft, if it's a big aircraft, what does a pilot do when to correct the nosedive? Say they lose hydraulics or whatever. I don't know. Just say, well, they let go of the yoke because the plane levels out. If you try to control and hold on to the yoke, and you're getting all that resistance, the plane's going to crash.
Yeah, you're gonna be causing new resistance by trying to control it. But or some people in this world, the way that they think, they don't want to take control of it, and they would just rather cruise through their lives on autopilot.
There's another side of that, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't always help either.
But when you listen to divine guidance, and I mean, again, that sounds esoteric and an Instagram anecdote, but it's not. What I mean by divine guidance is the quiet space, and we see we see it all day long.
Connecting with your soul.
I'm sorry, what?
Connecting with your soul. Not just like what I talk about your spirit guides, but actually connecting with your soul. Your soul knows a lot more. Where it just happens to be in this meat suit right now because you're here to do these physical lessons and learn these physical lessons and fulfill a physical purpose. But yeah, the higher self, that they always think, oh, higher self, am I trying to reach another spirit? No, you're trying to reach the one that's within you.
That's right.
It knows better. It knows all this other stuff that you're going through is garbage, and is trying to guide you to a better way. We have to learn to listen, and we have to learn to follow through. We just don't.
And the reason, until we get sick of suffering.
Yeah.
Or we kill ourselves, and that's a terrible thing to say. But
no, it's true.
What happened with me, and again, I'm going to point back to my client in the recovery center. He was sick of suffering in his thinking. He was sick of suffering and going against something that wasn't meant to go against in the first place, which is his temporary overwhelmed thinking about his situation, which is all made up. Even though
he got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Exactly. Isn't that a country song?
I don't know. Probably
Should
not.
be.
I don't like country music, so
I don't either.
I wouldn't listen if you paid me, but go.
This is a total tangent, but there's a very wonderful folk and acoustic singer from the area where you live. I think he's from South Jersey. His name is Richard Shindell. Have you heard of him?
No, we don't know everybody.
I thought you knew everybody, Daniel. I thought you knew
no, I know a lot of Spirit, but yeah, they're all dead people.
Well, they're all dead people, right? Well, he channels Spirit. Anyways, so I saw like I didn't want to. I was so tired of suffering. Like I had nothing to lose. But when I realized there was nothing to lose in the first place, because there was nothing to fix.
Right.
That maybe on paper my life is a disaster. At that time, my life is a disaster. But that's made up too. But my brain is telling me something different. So then I'm kind of conflicted. Like, wait a second. Spirit is. Who I really am, this spiritual being in this meat suit, like he meant. That's a great metaphor. Descriptor is in conflict with. I think it's in conflict. The story I'm telling myself about what's going on is in conflict with my true nature, which is none of that at all. But then once I saw that I was using my computer, my brain, and the equipment incorrectly, innocently, because no one taught me how to use this. I mean, we're fed stuff, we're fed stimuli, through our formative years. We go to school and we learn a whole bunch of stuff. Probably 70% of it we probably we forget anyways, or we don't forget and we use it for some purpose. But we're not really shown how our equipment works in terms of how our brain really works. And we have it backwards. Psychology has it backwards innocently. Yes. It's not we don't see the world. Our system is designed to experience the world from the inside out, not the outside in. We are, again, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, we experience a world of thought. We don't experience the world as it is through the outside. We are living in a thought-based experience, period. And once we see beyond the thought-based experience and get quiet, we then can tap into this inner wisdom that we all have on offer within us.
Yeah, because we don't... The world teaches us, like you said, when you were a child, you didn't understand what you were seeing and hearing and feeling, because the world tries to tell us that, that stuff, you just have imaginary friends. That's what you have, and that's all they are, and that's all they're going to be.
Right.
And so you need to get rid of that because it's not important. And this is what's important. And then they teach us all the garbage of the world that they think is important, because they want to turn it around on us. They tell us all this garbage, but then after we start, what they would say is being broken, being dysfunctional. And now that you're that, our plan worked. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with the psychiatrist and we're going to help fix you now. So they're the ones who cause the problems, and then they are the ones, because it's like a drug addict, I'll give you some drugs, but not too much, going to hold back. So you always come back to me for more. And that's what the world wants us to think, that they're going to let us condition us, and then we have to go back for more from them so they can fix us. But we're not broken. We don't have to be fixed by them. We can take care of ourselves. We can do that if we allow, or when we choose to allow ourselves to do that, and getting away from all that.
And we can also choose to see our divine nature, which is, is when people are, for example, my uncle just passed away from leukemia and lymphoma after battling it for over a year. And he was a really, really, really wonderful and kind person. And he once he kind of let go of he had moments where he was doing good, and then of course something happened, and unfortunately, but when he let go of hope, so you can relax into hope, because we have, and that's kind of how a lot of folks are in remission from all kinds of terrible diseases, including cancer, terminal cancer. I mean, I have a family friend who had pancreatic cancer, which is, I think, the worst type of cancer. And she's now 83 and she's in remission. I mean, call it a miracle. I call it, she let go of hope. And when you let go of hope, there's a certain kind of calm that comes over yourself too.
Sure.
It's not you're letting go of hope and then you're trying to, you want to kill yourself. It's
they're realizing the state that they're in, and they have decided, well,
it is what it is.
Sure.
But you can still, there are terminal cancer patients that are happy. How's that possible? There are folks, and I mentioned this in one of my episodes, that, knowing the greatest example of the sham, the game, the illusory nature of your brain's thought and thinking system when you are caught up is the fact that how is it possible that in a war-torn area, just to give you an example, if say a family is in his apartment was just bombed, and then a couple hours later the father is helping the neighbor look for survivors, the kids are playing, the mother is cooking dinner. How is that possible amidst all this horror? Similarly, how is it possible that a terminal cancer patient still has happiness, is still smiling, is still has hope, even though it's terminal? Because they see what you and I see. They see the illusory nature of it all, the story. And once you see that the brain's concocting some kind of story about your situation that it's not truth, even though it feels that way, man, it's so liberating.
Yeah. They experience the clarity of it and what it really is, and not all the garbage that they want us to believe it is.
And also gives us freedom to, when we do get, like, I get caught up, so I forget, we all forget who we are, and then we start going down the gravy train and start believing our crazy thinking, but then we remember again. It's like, and that's okay too. So there's not like these are the principles, the 3 principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. This is how no, it's how the system works. But you're still, life's a contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. So you're still gonna, get caught up in the racket called, your thinking when you're caught up and scared sometimes.
Yeah. Life's not meant to be easy. If it was, what would be the point?
Well, that the brain thinks it's not easy. And then it's interesting. Like it feels difficult when we're in our thinking, when we're caught up in some heavy thinking, but then it feels easy again.
Yeah.
When we're in the present moment. The great example of that is what?
It's always back and forth.
All back and forth is there's I heard this story about this guy who had suffered from bipolar disorder, manic depression most of his life, and all of a sudden, and he was working with some I think with Sid Banks and another coach, and this is years and years and years ago, probably 35 years ago. All of a sudden, he experiences complete calm, and he doesn't know why. He's not, it's not from his medication. It's not from therapy he's getting from his psychologist. And he's like, you know what? And he stops believing his thinking, right? He sees what we're talking about. He sees it, that he's not like this all the time. He's not bipolar all the time. Just like you're not, schizophrenic all the time, and you're not you're not histrionic all the time, or you're not borderline, whatever it is. And he goes to his therapist. He's like, you know what? I think I'm going to quit. Right. And the therapist says, no. You can't quit.
Not on me.
You're not there yet. It's not that simple. And it's just this disease is serious. Mental illness is serious. We got a lot more work to do, right?
Yeah, control.
Well, innocently, because he was the therapist was concerned about the patient's welfare.
Sure.
Right. And the patient said, well, if I'm experiencing this calm and I'm not cycling and I'm not, cycling in my thinking, and I'm not too high, I'm not too low, and I'm just myself, and I see what's going on, and I'm just able to see it, and I'm not taking the bait sometimes, and maybe sometimes I do. Why is it serious then? Why do you think that I need to stay the course if I already see what the brain's doing, and why I'm not like a slave to it? I don't have to believe my bipolar thinking or whatever. And the therapist says, well, yeah, but maybe you're seeing that now, but in a week from now, you might have an episode. And the client, the patient says, well, yeah, but if I do see that episode coming, I'll just see it. I'll just see
I might have an episode.
I might not. but the more I see that I might have it, the more that I see the illusory nature of it, and the more I'm able to sit with it. Now, there are people that are suffering with all kinds of mental health issues. And medication works for some folks because it's like training wheels. It calms down the noise, and that's okay. But to keep someone locked into this conditioning because the therapist is using his analytical brain, which is not helping at all, innocently trying to help this patient, saying, no, look, you've had this for how many years? What do you think? One day it's going to go away? But it was never there in the first place. It was never there in the first place. I mean, if someone told me about ADHD, I would just, and no one said, you need to take this medication and see a therapist and, do it this way. And it's a problem that you're going to have to deal with. If no one said any of those things to me, I would never have any of that kind of thinking.
Right. You would just thought whatever was going through, you were going through, and just tried to avoid it. And
or
it gets pointed out.
Or just recognize it as a neurotype that I'm not, that I have moments that I'm, impulsive or, meandering into the ethers when I'm distracted or overstimulated, and seeing that, okay, that's a sign that I need to kind of like take a step back and put the engines in neutral and maybe sit in my cubicle at work or whatever I'm doing to make a living, and just like, okay, brain, you're going places. I just need to take a break for a second. Again, I'm not saying it's that simple, but I'm also saying it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. But we come out with all these labels for what everyone is, or we tell people what they are. And then when we start thinking about the label, then that's when well, maybe I am that. Maybe that's their conditioning. That's their way of telling you, because just like with religious control, they want to tell you how to live your life the way they want you to live it. Oh, and give them 10% because they don't want to work a real job. But yeah, when the world is telling you how to live your life because they want to label you this, and they tell you enough, you'll start to believe it. They'll condition you into it. But you don't have to let them do that. If you choose not to, you can figure things out on your own. If you want to do that. A lot of people don't. They just let it go and go, oh, well, that's just me. Okay. Well, all right.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Be okay with being you.
And you know what, for when you're dealing with that, when you're in that kind of soup in a situation like that, we all have been there, and we may continue to be there occasionally now and again. It is as hard as your brain will never wrap around this because it doesn't know how to, because it's trying to keep you safe and trying to find ways to keep you safe by being reactive or whatever, is when that happens, when there is a form of control, like the therapist innocently trying to keep this patient from doing harm to himself, is going to be protective and think, work from a analytical perspective, or, oh yeah, because look, it happened, you've been on this, you've had this issue for this disorder for 25 years. It's not just going to go away kind of scenario. I find for me, and again, this may not be for everybody. For me, it works. It's just for folks that just don't see, just can't see it at that moment. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just caught up in their thinking about it. I just have for me, compassion helps.
Yeah.
Initially, that was like I was going against my own thinking, but then compassion helps. Like when I was dealing with my, it was an unjust how it went down with my experience with the criminal justice system was that initially I was angry and I can't believe, my life's over and I can't believe they did this to me. But then I saw it like, no, I have a lot of thinking around that, but that's not true. I eventually will be okay. I know I will be okay. Right. Because I'm resilient just like everybody else is. I know my true state is resilience and hopeful. I just have a lot of crazy thinking on board about it. It turned from anger, hopelessness to compassion for the system. And it was so strange because like anyone would say, well, look what they did to you. Like, look what happened. Like, look what was the end result. But
the blame game.
The blame game, but blame's also like a whole bunch of crazy thinking.
Yeah.
Blame's not fun, and that's not our true nature. But compassion is.
Yeah.
Even I mean, like for example, I don't know have you read the book Man's Search for Meaning? I'm sure you have. I mean,
I'm not a reader. Sorry.
Well, I'm barely a reader because I have an attention span of a lab rat. But
yeah, me too.
So there's Viktor Frankl was this psychiatrist who was a Holocaust survivor who his whole family was murdered in Auschwitz during the Holocaust, and Viktor Frankl was also in the camps, and he wrote a book about it called Man's Search for Meaning. And this is a guy whose entire family was wiped out by the Nazis, right? These are people that wanted to kill his whole family, and he didn't even know why. And he's in Auschwitz as a young man. His wife was murdered. His whole family, his brothers and sisters, gone, wiped off the face of the earth. And he found that finding meaning in every minute of every hour of every day is what saved his life. That folks that lost hope died. That it wasn't a guarantee, but if you could find meaning in everything that you did, even in the hands of these murderous thugs, the chances of you surviving this would be much better than if you just lost hope. Sure. The other part of it was his degree of empathy and compassion for his captors, which is, you and I would like, are you kidding me? If someone murdered my whole entire family and I'm being tortured on a daily basis and I'm hungry and I have no food and I'm basically naked in the cold with hundreds of thousands of other prisoners that are dying around me because of these people. Our ego and our brain is going to like go into survival mode and say, I'm going to kill these folks. And that would be our animalistic instinct. But instead of him just, trying to find ways to lash back at these people, at these prison guards, he had compassion for them. He found compassion for them. And because, they were also human. And through their own condition, it led them down this path and through the circumstances.
Right.
So those two variables really resonated with me, which led me to the 3 principles, to this work that I'm doing, because of the fact that even in the worst kind of situations, we still have this ability to find compassion for ourselves and for those that may have done us wrong, and still find meaning in our life. As hard as that is to think about when we're up here trying to think about it.
Sure. Overthinking it. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on for hours, Sam.
I think we could. Yeah, we went out for an hour. Wow.
I think we got the point across for what I was looking for with this.
This is great.
I really appreciate you being on my program. I wrote down some questions, but there's no need for me to ask them because you covered it all, man.
Yeah, I talk too much sometimes, but
I enjoyed it. I could
there's
sit here
good chemistry here.
I could listen to you for days. So tell me, or tell the audience where they can get a hold of you. And you said you're releasing your book soon, so tell them how they can find that as well.
Well, thank you. Yes. So for those of you that would like to explore this work and kind of get an idea of what I do, you can go to my website. It's samledconsulting.com, or you can DM me on Instagram, Sam Led Consulting. I'm also going to be starting have you ever heard of Clubhouse? Dan, you would love
Yes,
this.
I just saw it. I just signed up for it maybe like
3
weeks ago. Yeah.
I did 3 hours ago. One colleague of mine is like, you need to get on Clubhouse. I'm like, what's Clubhouse? Is there like a secret handshake?
There's that Clubhouse, and there's another one on Spotify called Green Room as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, you can start rooms in there and strike up conversations with people.
Well, I'm going to check out your room on Clubhouse.
Oh, I haven't even put up. I joined it, and I've been so busy doing what you're doing right now. I've been doing. I did 3 interviews yesterday. I have. I'm interviewing you today, but I have to do an interview on. So I've been guesting on other people's shows. I've probably been on maybe 10 or 12 other podcasts.
Oh, wow.
Just talking about what I do. So have I been?
Well, I can understand why, because
you're
a hard standard and kind and a man of service.
Just trying to help people out there.
You didn't pay me to say that. This is not sponsored. This is not, right? So like,
here's your $5. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So it's an honor to be on your podcast. So folks can reach out. Yeah, and I would love to get you on mine, The Fearless Now. And guys, check out my podcast too. I think you'll love it. Again, it's a labor of love, and I just ask, if you do like my podcast, The Fearless Now, tell your friends, especially those folks that need it, that are struggling right now.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Comments and smiley faces. And Daniel, I want to get you on my podcast as well.
Yeah, we can do that.
You have a lot more to offer than I do, because.
Oh no, we all have a lot to offer. I tell everyone, because people say, "Oh, about your soul," and so no, you don't have a soul. You are a soul.
That's right.
What you have is the meat suit. So the soul can come here and experience the world.
Meat puppet.
Yeah, you are a meat puppet, more or less. Well, you are a puppet as long as you let the system control you. Don't be the puppet. Cut those strings loose and stand on your own. Become the real boy, like Pinocchio had to do. Cut the strings loose and become who you truly are, which is that soul that is inside of you. And let go of everything else. Let go of all that conditioning and all that brainwashing we have out there, and be your true self, your true powerful self.
Well said. Well said indeed.
I just came up with that, Sam.
You came up with that, but it's authentic and real. And from you.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
Mr. Led, thank you for being on my program.
Thank you.
Yes.
But before we end, so those of you that you can go on my Instagram feed, kind of get an idea of the of what I'm sharing. You can DM me and also I just started writing some articles on medium.com.
Oh, cool.
And I like to write more than read. And that makes no sense, because usually people.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I get it.
And Daniel, when is your book coming out?
Good question. I'm so busy. I'm trying to get it written as quickly as I can. Hopefully I'll get it done within the next couple of months, and then I'll see what I'm going to do from there. Probably just go to self-publish. And then because my wife and I do festival circuits. When I go out and do readings for people. That's what I do. So I was scheduled to do like 17 of them in 2020, but that all went away. But they're coming back, And we've got 3 of them that we're coming up to do real soon. I like to do that. I like to get out and to be with people and help them that way, because I have so many amazing stories that come through from those. And actually, I'm going to put some of them in the book.
And I want you to, if you're okay with it, share some of your amazing stories when you come on my
podcast. I
don't put you on that spot there, but
oh no, absolutely. I like to be put on the spot, because that's when all the information I have stored likes to come out, and it'll get people to realize again about true spirit and what we truly are, instead of just what the world wants us to think that we are, because we're just not that. Awesome. All right. So again, I'd like to thank you again, Sam,
it's an honor.
For being on my show, and I hope everyone gets to go out and enjoy their day, and enjoy their beautiful weekend, and have a great day. And I will see you again soon on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson. Me.
For more information about Sam, please visit his website at www.samledconsulting.com. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson.